I'm here. What up? What up? What up? What's going on, Adam? How you doing?
Yo, Zachery, how are we doing?
I'm awesome, brother. I am fed up and I am pumped up to talk
You're
about
fed
MCAT.
up.
Make sure all these people in the chat, everyone that enters this group, that they don't make mistakes. We are here to help the pre-med community, save them thousands of bucks, teach them the proper way to study. And like, if we can do that tonight, I can go to bed happy, even though I've been yelling
Well,
a lot.
that's what we want. We want you to be able to go to bed
As long
happy.
as I can sleep if they can sleep. If they can't sleep, I can't sleep, Adam. That's how it works. So how are
I
you?
feel you. I'm doing good, man. I'm just grinding away, studying for step one. So
How's it going
anyone
along?
studying for the MCAT, I know I feel your pain. It's going well. It's definitely it's another beast. It's like every step of the process you think like that's the pinnacle, like studying for the MCAT. I remember like that was it, and now it's like this test is a lot of information. But no, it's going well, doing a lot of question-based learning, so using UWorld. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Everybody that's writing the MCAT, I want you to put a 6 in the group. Put a 6 up, put a thumb up.
Oh, I also, if you don't know what writing the MCAT means, because he's from Canada, it just means taking the MCAT.
I'm from the north. I'm from up north. I'm from Canada, guys.
I love that you say that. There's like one other thing that you guys say, and I'm like, no, not that. No, it was like pre-med related that I.
Okay. Yeah.
Who's got questions? We got some people coming in.
Garrett, what's going on? Polly G.
A lot of people waiting. We gotta wait. We
just had a conversation. Pre-med Jew. Yes. I'm loving it. So without further ado, I don't know, like if you want to just get started right now.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll get into it. So why don't you give a little background on yourself, how you started this account, MCAT Coach? Sure. So for the followers that are my followers that have never seen you, that are going to go follow you right after this, give them just a little background on your story, the work you do with students, and where you're at in the process right now.
Okay, so like my name is Zachery. You can follow me at MCAT Coach. So here's my story. So first year of my university degree, I failed out of university. I had the dean of my program say, Zachery, university isn't right for you. So first year I failed. That tanked my undergrad GPA. And at this point, something just clicked. I just changed as a person. I matured. I started hanging around the right people. Stopped responding to the texts of all my friends that are saying, party, 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 let's go out. I knew that this is the point where if I was going to make it in life, I had to just change who I surrounded myself with. So the biggest thing I can say is stop hanging around the toxic people, because they're just going to bring you down, whether it's pre-med, med school, doesn't matter. Distractions will be there, and they'll always be there. Excuses too. So I turned into a 4.0 student. I ended up doing my post-bachelor in pre-medical studies, and then I got to get ready to write the MCAT. And at this point, my ego kind of got to me a bit. My GPA was strong. I'm like, I got the MCAT. But the issue was, it was a completely different beast. And everybody in the undergrad world is in that content mindset. And we're here to talk to you tonight that the MCAT is two things. One, it is strategy-based learning, and specifically it's from the passage-based learning. And UWorld is your best third-party representation. I do not work for UWorld, but I live and die by their material, because it's a great material prior to going to the AMC material. And we'll talk about that later. So what I do is I literally save students thousands of dollars by telling them that they need to know a little bit of content, the content that you see in passages, as alongside strategies that me and Adam and other obviously very good tutors implement. And at that point, once you know the content and the strategies, it's just about putting them together on your own, and the sky's the limit. So I hate, like I was talking to Adam about this before, is like, so there's 3 phases of the MCAT. There's content, passages, and full lengths. The issue is most undergrad students spend 75 to 80% of their time in the content phase, when they need to really just expedite into phase 2 of the passages, because the content you see there in the passages is the same repetitive content that you'll see in phase 3 on the full lengths. You're not going to see page 282 definition 3C from some random textbook. And people always ask me, which textbook is the best? Is it the Kaplan? Is it the Next Step? Is it the Princeton Review? The textbooks are supplemental material. Think about if I asked you a random question. Are you going to go to a textbook and go to a library? Are you going to Google or YouTube image it? Or are you going to get a more visual, appealing, more something that's going to work with you? It makes no sense. We're living in not a stone age. So like when people ask me like, is it the 4th edition or 3rd edition that you're selling for textbooks? I'm like, one, I don't sell textbooks, and two, you don't need to know the edition. You don't even need the textbook.
Right. The
You need to learn how
definition's
to
not
teach
going to
them.
change from
So like,
textbook to textbook. Yeah.
I've been snapping on Instagram as the last few weeks because I know at the end of next month, everyone's done their semester and they get into this, okay, it's time to start the MCAT because I focus on one thing at a time. So I've been snapping so people don't spend thousands on these prep courses. And I know I don't want to go into the prep course and say any names, but they're focused on giving you that undergrad, like making you feel good. They'll give you a set of books and say, go learn this each day and each week. And I did that. I purchased Kaplan. I studied for 10 weeks and got no results. I did the money back guarantee and I started another 10 weeks. So I was 20 weeks in with $3,000 a debt. And like, I got nothing out of it. So I had to get a tutor that taught me these strategies and just change the way I thought, change the way I think. And like, the biggest takeaway is don't waste the 20 weeks. Don't waste the thousands. Find someone who's real. Find someone who really wants to help you. And just, that's all you really need to know. And like, that's my, not even a spiel, but that's just like my heart.
I'll get it. No, so
I'll
give you a little.
Too hard. I know you got lots of followers. I don't want to say the wrong thing. With
No. You speak your truth. Whatever you believe is like awesome. This is what I'll give you. My take on it is. So I actually don't. I've spoken because I like work with, but well, I worked for one of the big test prep companies.
Yes,
People probably know which one that is. So and I've had many conversations with a bunch of them. I'll say for a lot of these companies, their heart is really in the right place in regards to helping students. Whether or not their methods are the best approach, and considering how expensive a lot of them are, that's another story. The thing is, a lot of them are big corporate companies, so they spend a lot on advertising, all this, so then it ends up being that they're charging a ton for their classes, and then it's hard, especially as you grow, to really vet your teachers, which is another problem. Some of them have great teachers, and others kind of like make it through and know the content well, but aren't as good in regards to teaching. But I will say, like, I don't think most of those big prep companies are like out to get you, but with that said, there's a lot of wasted money that goes into, as you probably saw.
The issue is they just have too many students that need they need this resource, and it's just like it's too many coming at them to give that individualized care.
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean?
And
it's not their fault. It's just
And what you talk about a lot is like mindset and like strategy and like really like honing in on what good are effective study techniques. That's 10 times more important than how well the physics 2 videos in their course is, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Like most learning, and you'll see this, you guys, when you get to medical school, like a lot of it's learning on your own time, memorizing stuff like on your own time. It's not like there's not going to be some magic teacher that comes around every once in a while, really good teacher that explains things well, but a lot of it's up to you. So it doesn't matter if you have the best books or the best videos or anything like that. It's how you use your time and study effectively. That's what's going to get you a good score. So that in some way could actually put a lot of you at ease, because a lot of students always worry so much about what resources to use. And Zach alluded to this, but it doesn't really matter that much. What's more important, besides, I guess, a couple of fundamental things like having a really good question bank, because question-based learning is just a proven, like if you look in the learning science literature, a proven method to help students study better for these types of exams. It doesn't matter what resource you're using. What matters is how you study.
Exactly. And their students' biggest fears is like, okay, UWorld's great, but I didn't ever learn X, Y, and Z from the textbooks. To explain, Adam, what you're currently doing, how you're approaching the USMLEs with passage-based learning.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So what I'm doing and what most medical students do, and this is why I make sure most of the students that are studying for their MCAT, at least my students, know this is what they'll be doing. And it seems like you do something very similar with your students. Sure. Is everything is passage-based learning. So if you think of something like when you read a chapter 2 of the chemistry, textbook of whatever test company, let's say it's acids and bases, right? You go through it, you read it, like I could bet you so much money that a month later you forgot that entire chapter. Like there's just, I mean, unless you're a brilliant student that has a photographic memory, like most of that time you read a chapter, it's very passive learning and you're going to forget it. If we flip that on its head and we do passage-based questions, so instead you're doing UWorld questions or whatever question bank you're using, and you're getting questions and you're physically having to think about and synthesize this information. Most of the time you're going to get it wrong, And then after you get it wrong, you start reading explanations. Oh, this is what I should have been thinking about. I should use this formula. Oh, let me go look up that formula. Let me make sure I have that memorized. What do these variables mean? Like, how are we connecting this to the whatever concept they talk about in the passage? Because I'm sure you guys know that it's
Right.
both content and passages, right? So that's the type of learning you want to be doing. So that's exactly what I'm doing for step one. It's kind of like the gold standard of studying. You'll see in medical school for this giant exam, which is just questions. Obviously, you have to do some content, but the biggest gains you're going to get is from doing questions and then learning from it and learning the content based off of that instead of just reading through all the textbooks.
Opposite, exactly. I couldn't agree more. So like another thing I was going to say was in terms of the MCAT world, when you do like these U-World or these passage-based learning like sections, so say if you do general chem one day, then you do orgo, then you do biochem. So at the end of day 3, once you make these good like passage notes, at the end of day 3, you need to overlap those 3 days of notes. And wherever they overlap, say where they overlap. Wherever they don't, they don't. But you need to actively force yourself to do that, because a lot of people tell you to overlap this and that, and you're like, yeah, but what's the bang for your buck? It's actually putting in as much effort when you study and changing the way you study if you want to really retain it long term. And like, just do what other students aren't doing. So like another way I think of it is what are pre-med students bad in? It's cars and physics. And if you're bad in these areas, where do you think the scaled scores are going to jump the highest? These sections are psych-soc. Psych-soc, anyone can memorize banks and do well the last little short-term recall. But if you get good at cars, you get good at physics, your score is going to exponentially go way higher than the other sections. Just outsmart other test takers. What is everybody weak at? Focus on that. It's really simple. It doesn't really take strategic learning. It does actually, but you just have to think outside the box. So like I shot Adam a video chat to say, let's do this session. I'm pumped for this. And like, I know that made him, like, he's like, yeah, let's get it. Let's do it. And like, I could have easily sent him a paragraph. It took me less time and it was more effective just to do something different. And I just need you guys to be okay with reassessing the way you study, because as Adam says in medical school, everyone does it this way. They know that this is successful. And in order to get the score that Adam or I got on the MCAT and succeed when you do these next set of USMLEs and all the boards the rest of your life in terms of the standardized world, this is the approach. You just have to refine it over time, like as he still is. It's another beast. It's another beast on top of the MCAT. And yeah, Luna, I'm scared to take the MCAT too. I feel you. Like, I understand how that feels because you're not seeing it. You're seeing it as a content test. So like, I'm sorry, Adam, I'm going off on a rant right now.
No, go for it. Yeah.
So like I don't know if you guys are aware of car sections. So they're like nine passages per section, and you have 90 minutes to do it.
Also, if you don't know, cars is the verbal section, the reading section of the exam.
Yes. So cars is the reading section of the exam. So you have 9 sections and 90 minutes to do it. So there'll be like seven passages that are relatively easy, do really well, and then you bomb 1 or 2. And then you come to me or you come to Adam, you come to whoever you want to vent to, and you say, I don't understand the art of history and Aristotle's opinion or astrophysics. Yeah. But because you're reading it for content, I don't care if we're talking about me and Adam or astrophysics, you're still reading for the keywords, the key strategies. The car strategies are like your annoying girlfriend or someone you're really familiar with. They're very predictable. You're like, oh, it's one of these again. Or, oh, they're saying this again. And it's like, once you get that, the content, it doesn't matter if it's Aristotle or if it's LeBron James. It means the same thing to you because you're reading for a purpose. And like that's a huge takeaway for all the sections for MCAT.
Yeah, I think what Zach's trying to get out there, especially for the cars section, is it's a difficult section, and most pre-med students are good at math and science, and critical reading is not like something that is taught, but through practice, you can start to break down these passages. So even if you don't understand everything about the passage, you'll be able to understand the strategies that you need to use to get the answers and do that in the most effective manner. So for example, reading for the main idea, like being able to pick up the arguments that the passage is making. Even if you don't know what every single word, every single line means, you don't need to do well in that car section. So these are the things that you start to do, and you start to practice them early on, because think about it. How easy would it be to just do 1 10-minute cars passage a day? But if you start that, a year out from your MCAT instead of like a month before, because most students actually just push off cars until the end, like how big of a difference that would make. So it's all kind of like snowballing effects by doing things that other students aren't. Exactly. So yeah, let's see what questions we got. So we had some from before. Did we have another I missed?
We got simply studying, asking about biochem. I'm going to just say what I think about biochem first. So simply studying, first of all, how are you doing? We just had a conversation. Number 2, when it comes to biochem, I'm assuming you've seen that there's graphs and figures. And in a lot of passages, there's multiple graphs and multiple figures. So let's say there's like 6 graphs, and a question asks you, is this statistically significant, or it's asking a really broad question. I guarantee you there's keywords under the figure, and I guarantee you there's keywords in the question and the answer stem that funnels your vision from 6 graphs into 1 graph and specifically 1 bar. Nobody's a genius, nobody's a savant and sees 6 graphs in their mind at once all going. They just know what to focus, when to focus. And that's keywords and really strategy-based learning. And that's huge for data analysis, not just in biochem, but for all 3 like science-based sections, chem phys, biochem, and psych soc. It will come across. You just have to tunnel that vision, not a genius mindset. Once you see it for that, it's not intimidating. You're actually excited to see passages like that because you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I would say in regards to just the content itself, talking about biochem versus orgo, like if there's one thing you should really know well, I would know your biochem. It is definitely heavily tested on the MCAT. Like you need to have your amino acids down cold. Like you shouldn't walk into that
polar, non-polar, like the whole thing.
Yeah, if you walk into your test knowing anything, it's that. Like everything about those 20. Yeah. So like again, there's things like there's a whole guide listed on the AMC website of all the different content that's tested, and they kind of give proportions on how much. So doing that, kind of going through that guide is very helpful to start to see, all right, where are my weaknesses? What have I studied? Like what's going to be focused on? So yeah. You said, Shanna's study says, should I spend almost as much time prepping for that section as much as the others, or is it the more about the strategy with the car section?
Which section?
I'm not sure if I get that question exactly, but I guess I think what you're saying is, should you study as much on cars, is you got to know yourself. So another thing with studying, and this just goes all across the board, is a lot of students tend to focus on their strengths because it's easier, or a lot of students will try and like be evenly distribute all the information. So I'm just going to cover every single page of every textbook equally. That's not a smart way to go about it. And the reason being is, for example, I just said the most important thing that you can study, I don't want to say the most important, but like one of the things is going to be very important is the amino acids. So you should spend more time making sure you know those cold than other little orgo 2 reactions that are probably going to be less important. So you want to prioritize.
Condensation, reaction mechanism, bullshit. Yeah.
So it's all about.
Don't get me started on content, Adam.
Yeah. So it's all about prioritizing and understanding what you're good at and what you're not. So if you are awesome at cars, you take your first diagnostic and get a 129. Like, well, maybe you don't have to work on cars.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Or and I see that happen, or it's the other way around, and you do a diagnostic exam. And you see that you have some trouble reading, well, then you're going to have to start practicing that now. Don't push it off. Start working on it. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. 2
things. 1, if you fear and you have a weakness right now and you know it and you're just avoiding it, on test day, it's going to bite you in the ass. And when it bites you in the ass, it's going to be exponential. It will be like 10 times fold because you'll be thinking it the rest of your test, and it's going to affect areas you already know. Number 2, like I said, most students are bad at cars. Doesn't mean they can't get good. So like how I explain cars in terms of this analogy, it's like going to the gym. So like cars takes, I think, like about a month to 5 weeks to really get good at. So think of going to the gym for 4 to 5 weeks. If you take a week off the gym, you lose all your gains. Cars is about consistency and constantly doing, like Adam said, at least a passage a day. And like, as long as you consistently stay that route. So say if you did cars for 90 days straight, you get a difficult passage on the test day. Are you going to buckle under that pressure? Or are you going to be like, I dedicated the last 90 days. This isn't nothing. I know how to attack this. Your confidence comes through your proper preparation. And that's really something that I like to, I'm a mindset, like a motivational guy. I hope that kind of like comes off. But like, I really think there's a specific strategy in terms of how you approach them. You can't really like talk about specific strategies in like an Instagram live, because you need to break down a passage and see it for what it is and get those aha moments out of like the student. But like, you can talk about changing the way you're trying to see it. And if that we can get that across, as opposed, if you can like throw your textbook to the side by the end of the session, that makes my night. that's all I gotta say.
Good. So I missed a question from earlier. Garrett said, I've been using study schedule, Kaplan, TPR, Prince Review, AMC, Packet, any other sources I should use, and is reinvention real? I don't know what that means. Upward trend. I also am not sure what that means. But if you want to clarify that question, Gary, you could put it back in the comments.
Talking to a bad undergrad.
Oh, upper. Oh,
Yeah,
there was just
upward
like
three.
3 different. Okay, yeah, I'll try to
Yeah,
hit all of those.
reinvent yourself. Show
Got
what
it.
you did.
Okay, yes. So, yes, it is. I think Zach's story kind of speaks to that pretty nicely. You can, if you have an upward trend in terms of your grades, that means a lot. Like if you do really poorly your freshman year, and then you kind of show from there on, you got your act together, and you're maybe next semester you're getting B's, B pluses, then A's, and then it's like pretty much A's from there on out. Like med schools are going to see that you got, like, you now know what you're doing, and they're not going to hold that against you, because freshman year you didn't know how to study for these hard science classes. Like a lot of students this happens to, and they get hit hard because it's not easy to go from high school to college when you're taking a lot of pre-med classes. Some of them are weed outs, depends on the curve of your school. Like, so if you figure it out and you start doing better, you can 100% get into medical school. Like no doubt about that. And then you also have the MCAT as another chance to prove that you know what you're doing in regards to the sciences and being able to put in dedication for this career. In regards to the resources you're using, I mean, again, you definitely want to hit all the AMC material, so that's extremely important. The other ones if you have like the question banks from Kaplan or Princeton Review, like that's fine. I think like it's still, the more questions you get in, the better. And when I say that, I specifically mean the more questions you review, the better. Because a lot of people like to brag, like, oh, I did 5,000 questions. Oh, yeah? Did you review all 5,000? Because if you didn't get anything out of it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that's fine. And then, so I really like the UWorld question bank. It's very high quality. They invest a lot into they're just a question bank company, so that is what they do. So it's not like they also have a class and they're also doing all these different things. Like, they're dedicated just to making good questions, and the reason that they're so good is also they have very in-depth explanations after each question, which, like I just mentioned, is the most important part of doing questions. So that's another thing you could do. But really, I think someone else mentioned this, should I do so content or questions? It's questions, and then use that as the stem to then build out your content knowledge. Awesome. All right, I hope I answered all of those questions.
Any more questions that you missed or we missed?
Yeah,
we need to give everybody a rundown of how we know each other. Can we kind of like pause for a second?
Yeah.
We should give a little fun fact. Adam, start off, bro. Talk.
Okay, so
hilarious.
So like what, I don't even know, it was 8 years now, maybe more.
Yeah.
Do you remember how we actually, like, I posted this on my story, but I don't know if it was playing volleyball. It might have been though.
I think it would have been playing volleyball because we lived on the courts.
Yeah, we were both in the Dominican, or was it Cancun? I honestly don't remember.
It was a blur. It was 8 years ago.
Somewhere on vacation, and we met. We like became good friends. Then like spent, I don't know, the week together on vacation. Like our families became close, which was really nice. We like decided 2 years later we were going to meet up again for vacation. This was over the spring, the spring break vacation, or January. And then like hadn't spoken to you in like 6 years. And then I'm scrolling on Facebook, and somehow, I don't know how you got into my feed. It was like a post, like a MCAT.
That's random. Facebook's like only like spam now on feeds.
They must have knew like that we had to reconnect
for the stars to realign.
Yeah. So I look at your name wasn't even MCAT coach then. What was your Instagram handle?
No, it was
something
else.
It was like white coat something.
White coat
Vision. And I was like, I think I know this guy. And then, we reconnected, and it turns out like you had this whole story. You like almost got dropped out of college and then became pre-med. I'm like, oh shit, I've been on Instagram like doing pre-med stuff this whole time. And now you're taking off, and now I think it's a power partnership right here.
Exactly. Power team right here.
All right, cool. Let me pull in
let's answer the questions now.
All right, let's see
if we
definitely
really have to go to a car. Did we answer that, Shanice? Yeah. I think we did. Yeah, we already hit this. Great advice. What do you guys think about Next Step? I like Next Step for their full lengths. If that helps, I think it's a pretty good.
They're
for full lengths, especially exams 1 to 6. And the first one's free, so like I would try it out and see yourself. Altius is another good one I like, but that's it.
Yeah, I think Next Step has high quality stuff. They also they're coming out. They're pretty like they're more into one-on-one tutoring, which I actually think they do a good job in. It's definitely it's not like crazy expensive, but it's not cheap by any means. God, I don't want to misquote them, but I want to say it's like $1,600 or something like that. But it's one-on-one tutoring. I could be totally wrong there.
Right.
But I also know that they're coming out with like a course, which is supposed to be, or they probably already did, more like strategy based, because I think a lot of these even bigger companies are starting to get that students aren't really
Students are
resonating.
learning.
Students aren't resonating with the old, like, and I didn't, like, I know I was the teacher for one of these companies that, like, I tried to be as interactive with my students as possible, but like a 3-hour like lesson of mainly just content, and students are at lots of different levels. It's very hard to keep them attentive and make, and like I got very good reviews when I was teaching, because I would, like, if you were in my class, like, you knew you could be called on at any time. Like there wasn't even raising your hand. Like I was just like, all right, and John, what do you think about, and Jillian, like, what do you say about this? So like that's like a good way in regards
Nobody
to
was
teaching.
safe.
Just, yeah, no one was safe. They knew, but once you break that ice, everyone knows. They come to class knowing that.
Sweat
which is
coming
good.
down there.
But yeah, it's just like I think a lot of students are realizing that the majority of it, and these companies know this too, like, because they say like this is all the required reading and stuff you have before each class. That's where they go wrong, I think, is they know most of the learning has to be done in your own time. The MCAT is a beast of a test. It can't be like 12 3-hour classes that's going to get you a great score. But with that said, it's what you do on your own on those off hours. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. And that's why learning how to study the right way from mentors such as Zach, there's some other great people out there, myself, if you're one of my students, that's where you're going to see the biggest gains, because once you learn how to study, then you don't need anyone else, which is the best part.
Exactly. Building that base. So I want to say something. I had a Kaplan course. Like I did a Kaplan course, and like there was like an online regimen of like what I needed to complete in that week. And like I would have to do like, say, like 4 or 5 chapters, and they quoted me at an hour per chapter. And I remember going through my textbook, I'm like, this isn't taking me an hour. It's taking me 2-3 hours a chapter, because they expect you to be thinking big picture strategy from day one and knowing what to focus on. How can you do that? You were never taught that. And then you come into class next week and you didn't learn any of the strategies you were supposed to, and you're already halfway behind the content that you're supposed to know, and you're just feeling like you're always playing catch up and you're sinking. And like that is, I'm just trying to make sure students don't make that mistake, because it's what I did, and I was a smart student. I did very well, my GPA 4.0 after that, but like I had to recover it in terms of how I saw the MCAT. And I know Adam and like everyone that's taken it before, everyone I've like pitched, and I even pitched this to, that follows me on Instagram that has taken the MCAT, they're like, preach, 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 because it's facts. And it's like, I love that Adam's down to do this, and Adam's still in the MCAT pre-med world. He's in medical school, second year, preparing for his USMLEs. He believes in this, right? Like he wants others in the next generation, the next few years, to succeed just like himself and just not make the same mistakes. And like that's authentic. Like I'm applying to medical. He's in medical school and he's still doing this on a Tuesday night. Like this is as real as it gets. So I'm being real, bro. I appreciate you doing this.
I appreciate you really picked up your energy is it's contagious, and it's been good having your voice out there, because I've definitely, I will say, like I've been off of Instagram a lot. Like last year I was like really trying to get my voice out there, but it's been hard with studying as well. And that's another thing you gotta like think. There'll be times when you just have to buckle down and like grind, and you have to make sure you know your priorities. But yeah, so we have another question here saying, how do you memorize all the material, which is a very good question.
You must have served this session late if you're asking me that question.
So I'm going to talk about actually for that, because I think as much as, and I know you're preaching strategy, learning questions based on that, there
is content you need to know.
Yeah, unfortunately, like the case is, we'll see this when you get to medical school even more, like there still is a lot of memorization required to do well on these exams, and it's not the only thing, and I think it's stressed too much, but there really is a lot. So one thing that I've been teaching a lot of students, and that is very much used in medical school, is an app called Anki. I don't know. Have you heard of it? Have you ever used it before?
I use it for psych coach when I study for the MCAT.
All right, there you go.
Pre-med 95.
Nice. Is that like the deck?
That's like the deck. That's like the best.
Because since I think Anki's taken off, I've been out of the MCAT world, so I've been trying to figure out. I've been trying to figure out like.
Yeah.
What the like go-to deck? I was actually looking at
right now.
The other
deck. That's a Pokemon deck.
Is that just for psych social, or is that for
just like, well, they have it for other sections, but I usually just recommend it for psych social.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So that's exactly what I was gonna go to. So you don't want to overload yourself. I think this is the problem with Anki, is that Okay, so for those, I'll take a step back. For those that don't know, basically what it is, it's a flashcard app, but it's really a lot more than that. It's
awesome.
a spaced repetition app that happens to use flashcards. So essentially, what you do is you make your flashcards. You can make lots of, and you can add images in there, like really, like however you want to customize it, you do it. And then Anki will show you as you go through the card. So you do a card, you get it right. I actually have a YouTube video on this, so if you check that out, I think my channel name is the same. It's All Things Healthcare. But you would do a flashcard. If you get it right, let's say it'll show you tomorrow. Then if you get it right again, it might show it to you in 3 days. Then again in a week, and then 2 weeks. So the more you get it right, the farther away it's pushing it. So you're getting that spaced repetition in, so that once you learn something and it's in your Anki deck, you're really never gonna forget it. And then the best part about that is it's really good for memorizing something in the long term. Like you got 3 days to go, like it's not the best thing. But if you for you students that are gonna be starting for the MCAT, you know it's like months where you're dedicating to this. And like I've been using Anki for studying for the USMLE, which is it's just enormous how much information is on it.
I always see you posting about it.
Yeah,
I got my daily Anki in. Daily Anki in.
If you stick to it, it is. The amount of information in my brain right now is like just ridiculous, and like I could not do that by just reading textbooks and stuff like that. Like by doing the spaced repetition, I'll have like cards, like flashcards that I hadn't seen in like 3 months because I had like worked it all the way up to the 3 month mark, and then I'll get it right, and it'll be like, all right, the next time you're gonna see this is in like 6 months. And I'll be like, I guess I'm not seeing that one again.
I'll see you later after the summer question.
I guess I'm not seeing this card until. But that's like the way to really get like long term memory down is using Anki and learning how to use a students.
No, you're good. You're back.
A lot of students get that wrong, where they put too much emphasis on it, and then that becomes a problem. Like you want to just use it really for the most high yield information, and you never want to overload yourself to the point where you're stressed doing too many flashcards every day. It should be something that takes you, at most, I would like to keep it like 2 hours and under every day. I'm kind of a little bit past that point, but I also have like thousands and thousands of cards now in my head. But it shouldn't be something that's burning you out, but it's a really, really effective way to memorize a large quantity of information. So I would definitely recommend looking into that if you haven't.
And what I want to say here too, this kind of just multiplies what you were saying before. You're focusing on your weaknesses every day. So areas that you're really, really bad in, those are the flashcards that are going to come up.
Exactly.
And it makes you face your fears now, whether it's MCAT, USMLE, any test. You don't want to be like pushing those fears aside, because eventually that's what's going to do you in. And just the sooner you're okay with overcoming your weaknesses and your fears, and like me failing out of university, there's beauty in the struggle. There's beauty in failure, because it breeds so much success and change as a person, as a test taker, as just your confidence. Like that's what I love, is everyone that does good on the MCAT that I help, they're like, I can do medical school, I can do standardized tests. And it's like, yes, you can. Because it's just like, it just opens up the gateway to so much good that it brings, that like, because you're so in fear of this test, and you see it as a standardized test, and then you're like, I'll do good on USMLEs. And you probably will, because you've changed the way you study if you did well.
Yeah. It's a big
obviously
hurdle.
It's another beast. I'm not dissing.
No. Yeah, I mean, preparing for 100%. Preparing for the MCAT is a big deal, and anyone who does it should be extremely proud. It's not easy to take that test. Also, by the way, feel free. Like I know we're like harping on the MCAT right now, but if you have questions about anything like medical school life, anything about the application process as a whole, I know Zach's just going through it now too, but you guys could feel free to ask that as well. I know we did have a question. I'm gonna try. Let's see if I can pull it in. Let's see if this works.
What does it say? The time efficient question?
No, I had one. What are your thoughts on master's program versus post-bac? Can you see that? Do you see like the question pop up?
No, I don't.
You don't? All right, maybe everyone else does. I like pulled it in from the stories from earlier.
Okay. All right. You can go off on that first if you like.
All right. Yeah. So I know. So you were saying you did a post-bac, so I guess you could talk about that in a little bit. But basically, there's a lot of different paths after you graduate if you're not going directly to medical school. One is just taking, like, you got all your pre-med prereqs in, and you just want to, no problem, life of a pod. So one is that you are just, you took your prereqs, but you want to take a gap year, which is very common these days. Do some research, get more clinical experience, whatever. Another road is like you didn't do that as well as you would have liked. Maybe you figured out you wanted to be pre-med a little bit later on, so you had a first 2 years in regards to your GPA or whatever it is, and you want to retake those sciences and really show that you know what you're doing, that's where like a post-bac can come in, where if you go into the AMC, I'm only speaking for US medical schools here. AMC has a good resource where they show each post-bac and what specifically that post-bac is for. So exactly. So some post-bacs may be, all right, you're going to retake all the sciences, all the pre-med courses. Basically, you're doing it all over. Or it might be, okay, you're just going to take the courses that you need to because you're missing a few before you apply. And then, or you have everything and you kind of just want to show a little bit more to medical schools. And that's where I guess a master's could come in if you feel like you want to show that you could excel on like upper level science classes. So if you do some of these masters, they're like basically the first year of medical school where you're taking anatomy. They're like these special master's program. You're taking anatomy, physiology, like microbiome, whatever they have. And you do well in that. Well, then you're clearly showing the medical schools that you can do well in those classes that you're going to be taking as a first year anyway. So that's another avenue you can go, which will really show schools that you're ready to apply, that you can handle the higher level material that's going to be thrown at you.
Exactly.
So why don't you
can
you talk about your experience with that?
Because I was a post-bac student myself, and I use it as a GPA strengthener.
Mm-hmm.
But what you need to also look into is the tuition costs, because some of these post-bac programs are fairly expensive. Yeah. And sometimes it might be better to take a different route, whether it's just taking the prerequisites on their own or taking it at your local school, because it is a financial investment. But if you're serious about this and you think this school best fits your mission and your belief and it's going to get you to where you want, then go for it. And awesome. I think you just need to look into the financial investment as well, because you're already going to be in a lot of debt with medical school, and residency is not going to give you the time to pay it off. It's not until after that.
Yeah.
Right?